Israel proposes 2-month ceasefire deal for release of all hostages. China's human rights record scrutinized at UN meeting. Turkey lawmakers sign off on Sweden's NATO membership. Ecuador's president seeks US, European financial support. India tops Hong Kong as world's fourth-largest stock market. South African government prevent auction of historic Mandela artifacts.
Hello, I'm Wade Lee. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It is Thursday, January 25th, and here are your top stories. Axios reported Monday, Israel has offered a 2-month ceasefire to Hamas as part of a prospective hostage deal. The proposal comes after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected Hamas's call for an end to the Gaza war in exchange for the release of hostages held there, as he faces increasing public pressure to bring the captives home. In order to release the remaining hostages, Netanyahu said Hamas was demanding an end to the war, the release of Palestinian prisoners, and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. I worked this around the clock, but to be clear, I reject outright the terms of surrender of the monsters of Hamas, he said in a statement on Sunday, adding that agreeing to these terms goes against Israel's security.
According to the Prime Minister's office, Netanyahu has since told families of the remaining Israeli hostages in Gaza that Israel is an initiative to secure the release of those abducted, but that there is no real proposal from Hamas that would advance their freedom. Israel's latest proposal envisions the release of all remaining hostages and hostage bodies in multiple phases, in exchange for Palestinian detainees imprisoned in Israel. It would also see Israel move its forces out of main population centers and allow a gradual return of Palestinian civilians to Gaza City and the northern Gaza Strip. Out of the 253 hostages Israel says Hamas seized on October 7, Israel believes that 132 are still in Gaza, of whom 104 are thought to be alive.
Western countries used a regular UN-backed review of China's human rights record Tuesday to press Beijing to do more to allow freedom of expression, protect the rights of ethnic minorities, and to repeal a national security law in Hong Kong that troubled independent activists. China's ambassador in Geneva, Chen Xu, led a delegation from some 20 Chinese ministries for the Universal Periodic Review conducted under the UN Human Rights Council. He stressed, China's progress in poverty eradication, said citizens engage in democratic elections, and gave assurance that freedom of religion belief is safeguarded. An extraordinarily high number of more than 160 countries registered to take part in the discussion. That meant each country had a maximum of 45 seconds to speak.
China's delegation had a total of 70 minutes to make its case. The review process, which encourages constructive recommendations over sharp criticism, nevertheless gave way to firm, if not scathing, advice to China from some leading Western countries, while some of China's friends rallied to its defense. Many developing world countries praised China's policies on issues like poverty reduction and economic development policies while also offering suggestions to Beijing. The Universal Periodic Review puts all UN member states up for scrutiny, at times sharp, by other countries roughly every 5 years. The 3.5-hour discussion aims to offer constructive criticism and to yield a written report with recommendations. At China's last review in 2018, the United States and other countries voiced concerns about its treatment of Muslim Uyghurs in Xinjiang.
Turkish legislators on Tuesday endorsed Sweden's membership in NATO, lifting a major hurdle on the previously non-aligned country's entry into the military alliance. The legislature ratified Sweden's access protocol by 287 votes to 55, with 4 abstentions. The ratification will come into effect after its publication in the official Gazette, which is expected to be swift. Hungary then becomes the only NATO ally not to have ratified Sweden's access. NATO member Turkey has been delaying Sweden's membership for more than a year, accusing the country of being too lenient towards groups that Ankara regards as security threats.
It has been seeking concessions from Stockholm, including a tougher stance toward Kurdish militants and members of a network that Ankara blames for a failed coup in 2016. Turkey had also been angered by a series of demonstrations by supporters of the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party in Sweden as well as Quran-burning protests that roiled Muslim countries. Last month, Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee gave its consent to Sweden's bid in the first stage of the legislative process, after Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan sent its accession protocol to lawmakers for approval. Arguing in favor of Sweden's membership last month, Deputy Foreign Minister Burak Akkaper cited steps Sweden had taken to meet Turkish demands, including lifting restrictions on defense industry sales and amending anti-terrorism laws.
Ecuador's president on Monday said he is seeking financial support from the US and Europe, as well as extending output from an oil block that was voted to be shut down, as he looks to free up funds to fight organized crime. President Daniel Noboa, a 36-year-old businessman who started his term in November, has launched a 60-day state of emergency, nighttime curfew, and military offensive against criminal group he has designated as terrorists. The escalating violence in the South American country, which saw gunmen storm a live TV broadcast earlier this month, comes as the economy is struggling to meet its domestic debt obligation, limiting its ability to borrow from overseas.
Top U.S. officials are visiting Ecuador this week to boost bilateral cooperation on security and fighting organized crime. Noboa said in an interview with Teleamazonas TV channel that refinancing the foreign debt would be vital. Noboa also noted that an option would be to postpone the closure of Amazon oil block 43ITT, which is scheduled to shut down in August after an environmental referendum. The block, operated by state-owned Petroecuador, produces around 55,000 barrels per day, BPD. Noboa also announced a $1 billion cut to government expenses and said he supports a tax on profits registered by private banks over the past 2 years. It is essential to maintain a certain income until this pivotal time is over, he said in the interview. If we do not fight and fund ourselves, we will lose the country.
India's stock market capitalization has overtaken Hong Kong's for the first time as the South Asian nation's growth prospects and policy reform make it an investment darling, while global capital pours out of China. According to data compiled by Bloomberg, the combined value of shares listed on India's exchanges reached $4.33 trillion as of Monday's close, versus $4.29 trillion for Hong Kong. That makes India the fourth biggest equity market globally. Its value crossed $4 trillion for the first time on December 5th, with about half of that coming in the past 4 years. Equities in India have been booming, thanks to a rapidly growing retail investor base and strong corporate earnings.
The world's most populous country has positioned itself as an alternative to China, attracting fresh capital from global investors and companies alike, thanks to its stable political setup in a consumption-driven economy that remains among the fastest-growing of major nations. The relentless rally in Indian stocks has coincided with a historic slump in Hong Kong, where some of China's most influential and innovative firms are listed. Beijing's stringent anti-COVID-19 curbs, regulatory crackdowns on corporations, a property sector crisis, and geopolitical tensions with the West have all combined to erode China's appeal as the world's growth engine.
South Africa's government announced last Friday it will challenge the auctioning of dozens of artifacts belonging to the nation's anti-apartheid stalwart Nelson Mandela, saying the items are of historic significance and should remain in the country. The 75 artifacts belonging to Mandela, the country's first democratically elected president who spent 27 years in jail for his anti-apartheid struggle against the white minority government, are to undergo the hammer on February 22nd in a deal between New York-based auctioneer Guernseys and Mandela's family, mainly his daughter, Dr. Makizwe Mandela. The item include Nelson Mandela's iconic Ray-Ban sunglasses and Madiba shirts, personal letters he wrote from prison, as well as a blanket gifted to him by former President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle.
A champagne cooler that was a present from former President Bill Clinton is also on the list, with bidding for it starting at $24,000. Also among the items is Mandela's ID book, his identification document following his 1993 release from prison. Last month, the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria gave the go-ahead for the auction after dismissing an interdict by the South African Heritage Resources Agency, which is responsible for the protection of the country's cultural heritage. The government said Friday it will back an appeal by the agency. South African Minister of Arts and Culture, Zizi Kodwa, said the government wants to preserve the legacy of former President Mandela and ensure that his life's work remains in the country.
The answer for yesterday was C, breakthrough. He finally made a breakthrough in peace talks with his efforts. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of India top Hong Kong as world's fourth largest stock market. Number 1, coincide, 同时发生. The strike was timed to coincide with the party conference. Number 2, prospect, 可能性，希望. A place in the semifinals is in prospect. Number 3, populous, 人口众多的. Indonesia, with 216 million people, is the fourth most populous country in the world. Next, we have a multiple choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comment section. The correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Wade Lee, your host. I'll see you next time.